Excellent. Thank you, everyone. So we have a brand new workshop, and it's all because I've started to write a book. And I got inspired to want to share the ideas of the Rebel Business School and the Rebel Finance School and all of the crazy ideas that you've all seen in some way further around the world. And I figured it was time to write a book. And I met a coach that said they would help me. And the coach has helped me to create an outline of the content. And one of the pieces of homework they sent me was to deliver one of the chapters of the book as a course, and then to get the transcript of that course. And that will be the first outline of that chapter. And that was the idea of how to do it. So that has inspired today's workshop on what we're doing. So what we're actually doing today, what the plan actually is today, is I'm recording the meeting. I may use the audio to do a podcast of it. So if you come on and ask a question, you're being recorded, and just know you might show up in the podcast. If you don't want that, just put your questions in the chat instead. That's the easy bit. We won't use the video. So if you've got your camera on and you haven't done your makeup, you're safe. And do have your videos on, because it actually really helps me, because I get to see your expressions and how you feel about the video and what I'm saying. And it really helps me to stay engaged. So I really appreciate that you have those on. One thing I would love is, as we go through the workshop, please can you put comments, questions, things you don't understand, or in general abuse in the chat, so that when I get the transcript, I can marry up the transcript to your questions, and it will help me refine the content and go through it. So if something comes into your head like, oh, what does he mean by this? Or what's this question? Or Alan, that's rubbish. I would like you please to put it in the chat, because that will really help me. So the more comments, the more thoughts you have, the stronger it will enable the second version of this to be. Does that sort of make sense to everyone? Perfect. Mark nodded, Kenneth nodded, Tracy nodded, Annalie waved. That's perfect. Okay, so that's the plan. Let's get into the course. The course is, which life do you want to lead? And it's an interesting question. Where are you heading? What are you creating? Which life do you want to lead? And I don't know if you've ever felt confused along the way. Have you ever had moments where you felt lost? You felt like, what am I doing here? Where am I going? Which of these options should I take? And I tell you what, in the Rebel Business School courses, it's surprising how much time Simon, myself, Casey, and the others spend helping people choose which one of their ideas they actually want to progress with. And this happens regularly to me. I remember years ago being fired from my last job. And if you want to be in one of those moments where you're wondering, what do you do with your life? Getting fired will create that. And I can't tell you why I was fired, because I had to sign an agreement saying that I wouldn't say that. And they paid me money so that I would leave. And I was left wondering, what do I do with my life? Where do I go? And I had one of those moments just last week where the way we fund and pay for the podcast to give it away has changed. And I'm left thinking, where do I go? What do I do with it? Do I go this way? Do I go that way? What are my options? And it's so easy to get into that position of wondering what to do. And as I've written this course, I've started to realize it actually happens to me once or twice a year. And it's probably happened to you regularly throughout the years you have been doing things, where you end up wondering, which way do I go? And what is the right choice? And it's really interesting when we put the pressure on ourselves to make the right choice. And I think the right choice comes from very early on in life, when you've got school pressure of make sure you choose the right subject, make sure you get the right answer, and they go through your homework and put big red X's against everything you've done wrong. And we're trained from a very early age that there's only one right answer. And then we get this family pressure, well-meaning family and pressure. I remember going to my granny once, and I was talking to my granny about the job. I didn't enjoy my job. I wanted to quit. And she said, stick at it, stick at it. And the pressure she put on me to stay there, she was trying to do the best for me. And her husband had stayed at one employer for her entire career. And that's what she felt I should do. But the pressure to do the right thing, and then the society pressure. There's people out there being successful. There's people out there. Oh, someone has requested that live transcript be enabled. We can do that. So there's people out there, the societal pressure of the newspapers showing you all these people who are successful with jobs, and Instagram showing you the perfect lives people are leading. And there's all this societal pressure to get the right answer, the right direction, to live up to all these things. And we end up being under a huge amount of pressure to make the right choice. And I always remember going to the careers service. I don't know if you've ever been to the careers service when you were at school. I went in and it was one of those buildings that were kind of grey, brown stains up the outside. They smelt slightly as you went inside. And they sat me down with a computer program that asked me questions like, do you like to read? Do you like to drive? Do you like maths? And I answered all their questions conscientiously. And it came back and said, the careers you should do, you should be a bus driver, or you should be a quantity surveyor, or you should be a librarian. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't want to do any of those jobs. Which life should I lead? Where should I go? And I wish, I don't know if you've ever wished this, I wish that I could see it all play out. If I'd have chosen to be a librarian, where would I have ended up? If I'd have chosen to be a quantity surveyor, where would I have ended up? And I wish that some kind of a map that showed, like, this branch, you would have ended up here, and this branch, you would have ended up here. And you probably all know I'm a big superhero film geek, and there's this concept of the multiverse. And somewhere out there, there is a Mark Pringle playing out all of the different options that Mark didn't take. Somewhere out there, there's a Philip Allen doing this and doing that, and there's the different versions of where you would have ended up. Unfortunately, we can't see that. So we have to make the best choices we can. Now, before we get into how do you actually decide and where do you go, I wanted to introduce a couple of concepts that I think will help you. And the first concept is the zone of awareness. It's like the stuff, you have a map in your head of all of the things you're aware of. And it includes the places you go, the people you know, the concepts and theories. It's the things you're aware of. And I had an example of that this very week. I was looking at where we were going to go after Colombia, and I saw, as I scrolled through the map, there was a place called Montevideo. I'd never heard of Montevideo. Have you heard of Montevideo? No, everyone's shaking their heads, neither had I. It's the capital of Uruguay. It's on the beach. It's meant to be one of the most beautiful places, but that was not in my zone of awareness until I scrolled through the map and found it. And all of a sudden, my zone of awareness was expanding. And you expand it by reading a book or talking to people or finding ideas. And what you are aware of expands. Now, 21-year-old Alan's zone of awareness was very, very small. He did not know very much. He didn't really know anything. And 21-year-old Alan, self-development was not in his zone of awareness. He'd never heard of it. No one had ever told him about it. It didn't even exist in that world. Financial independence, never heard of the term. How to present, character, charisma, none of that was there. Index funds, what are those? Like, there's these things. Like, my zone of awareness was tiny. And I'm sure you've had this experience as you've gone through life, that you learn more and you expand. And one of the biggest moments that happened for me was as a 21-year-old, I was working in the family business and my parents were getting divorced. If there's one place you do not want to be when your family is getting divorced, it is working in the family business. So I left my job, my family is falling to pieces, and I went to my girlfriend and said, I need to get away. Do you want to come away on holiday with me? And she said, no, thank you, Alan. I don't love you anymore. And my entire life was falling to pieces. And at that moment, a guy with the most incredible name, his name was Matvey Mihailovich Ananin. He changed my life in one moment when he gave me a self-development book. And he said, Alan, you need to read this. Now, at that moment, there was a choice, wasn't there? Have any of you have ever been handed a book and asked to read it and not? Have you ever been told to go on a course and then not done it? And even if sometimes people put things into your zone of awareness, it still doesn't permeate. But for whatever reason, I picked up the book and I started to read it. And I went away for a holiday and I sat there on the beach reading this self-development book, and it changed my life forever. And it's one of those moments that changes everything, which we're going to come back to multiple times throughout today. And another example of this is when I was around about 30, a friend sent me a link to a blog and said, have you heard about this financial independence stuff? And I could have missed that. We could have not read it. Luckily, Katie saw it, read it, spread the word to me, and all of a sudden, my zone of awareness is expanding and I'm starting to understand more concepts. But there are so many things hidden in the world that you just don't know about. There are so many things hidden in the world that I have no idea about. And I think that makes it exciting and very difficult to choose the life you want to live. So how do you expand your zone of awareness? You already know this, you're probably doing some of it. Reading books, gaining those ideas and those thoughts, it brings new things into your world. You've got mentors and coaches, you go on courses, you meet people. Most of the mentors and coaches I've had in my life, I've never met. They've been through self-development CDs and books and all of those sorts of things. And you've got courses and you've got asking people, what are you missing? What am I missing? I'm looking at this in this way. What am I missing? And that helps to expand your zone of awareness. But there's something else I wanted to add to this, because inside your zone of awareness, there is a smaller zone called the zone of possibility. And it's what you believe is possible for you. Some of you have heard about financial independence and made a decision that it's not possible for you. You're aware of it, but you don't think it's possible, so you will never try. You will never have a go with it. And to give you an example of that, quite a few years ago when I was starting my business, I was introduced to someone. His name was Matt, again, funny enough. And I went up to the Institute of Directors to meet him. And we sat down and had a coffee. And I remember him saying to me that he has every August off in its entirety. And I went back home and I told Katie about this. I told Katie, like, this guy has an entire month a year off. Can you believe it? Suddenly, like, having an entire month a year off was in my zone of awareness, but I didn't think it was possible. So I kind of almost just put it to one side and went back to work. So my question for you is, what have you become aware of over the years that you've just put to one side because you don't think it's possible? Are there things that you would love to try and love to do that you found out about through a movie, a course, a book, but you've just put to one side because you don't think it's possible for you? And there's so many people that say to me things like, oh, Alan, it's fine for you with investing. I'm just not good at numbers. Or they say to me, like, starting a business, that's great for you. I could never do that. And they have these beliefs in their head of what is possible and what is not. Now, just because you believe something is possible, does that mean you are absolutely 100% guaranteed to do it? No, definitely not. I've believed a lot of things are possible and failed. But if you believe it's not possible, that stops you from ever having a go. It stops you from ever having a chance. And I think that's the bit I really want to give you is, if you don't believe it's possible, you will never try, and therefore it is impossible for you. If you believe it's possible and have a go, you might fail, but there is a chance that you can succeed. And one of the concepts that actually came from that very first self-development book that I was given was that we have these global beliefs that control what is possible for us or not. We think we're not good at numbers, so we never try and learn. We think we don't have a good memory, so we never have a go at remembering. We have these global beliefs that show what's possible and what's not. And I remember in this book saying, why don't you try out some new beliefs? Why don't you test some new beliefs? And one of the beliefs it suggested, which I have taken to heart massively, is I can learn anything. You can learn anything. Do you believe you can learn anything? Or do you believe there are things you can't learn and you won't understand? And how does that define what is possible for you? And these beliefs that you have define what's possible for you. Another belief I'd love you to try on. I'd like you to test these beliefs. Don't believe me, take them out into the world and have a go with them. One of my favorites, I don't know, do you recognize these characters? For those of you brought up in the 80s? For the young people, they won't even remember. I love that some people are nodding. Thank you, Organizer-in-Chief, for nodding. You remember it like I do. It is the A-Team, and the A-Team had these huge problems, and then they would go into a shed, they would create some crazy machine, and then defeat all the bad guys. And my belief along the same lines is, given time and space, I can create anything or I can conquer anything. I just need to have a go at it. And I think that belief doesn't mean you will, but it opens up the chance that you might. Given time and space, I can figure out finances. Given time and space, I can figure out relationships. Given time and space, I can figure out business. And then you can have a go at doing it. So how do you expand your zone of possibility so that you can actually start to get out there and live the life you really want? How do you do that? Well, the first is the coaches and the mentors. Mine were books and CDs and courses, and I would listen to Brian Tracy and Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn. And then I would go back to my real life and I would work on my problems, and I would ask myself the question, what would Zig Ziglar do? Or what would Tony Robbins do? And they became my virtual advisors. And some of you have got real life coaches or mentors that can help you with this stuff, but that will transform what you think is possible. The second one is meeting people who have done what you want to do. I remember going on a course to learn about financial independence. And Katie found it. We flew all the way across the world to Ecuador to go on this thing all about financial independence. And we met Mr. Money Mustache and JL Collins and all of these people. And suddenly I met people who had done what I wanted to do. And I saw it was real. And you know the level of belief that gave me, that it was possible? If they can do it, I can do it. If they can do it, you can do it. So can you find people who've done what you want to do and go and talk to them, engage with them? Where do you find them? The third is the confidence. I'll tell you what, if I could give you one thing that changes everything, it's your level of confidence. If you can work on your confidence, your self-belief, find a YouTube video that helps you to feel more confident, read a book on confidence, it changes everything. And then the final one, changing your circle of friends, like the people that are around you. Try bringing in some new people that have different ways of thinking. You don't have to get rid of old ones if you don't want to, but try bringing in some new ones with some different ways of thinking. It will challenge you, stretch you, show you what's possible. And if there was one of those I'd tell you to do, it would be working on your self-confidence and belief. Because if you don't believe it's possible for you, it never will be. So there's two main concepts I wanted to give you at the start, was the zone of awareness and then the zone of possibility, which is normally smaller inside. Because I am aware of professional footballers or professional racing car drivers. I also don't truly believe that is in my zone of possibility. Being 43 now, I'm not ready to go and play in the Premier League or do any of that stuff. So it's a smaller circle, but it controls what's possible. And how can you make the right choice if you don't even know what the options are or believe it's possible for you? So that's step one, is thinking about what is possible for you. So I have a question for you. What's stopping you from living the life you really want to lead? What's stopping you? And I would love you, please, to stick in the chat, what do you think stops you from living the life you want to lead? Someone says I have pen marks on my screen. That's definitely going to stop me from living the life. I have imposter syndrome, health, self-doubt, confidence. Full-time job. Amanda says indecision. That is an interesting one. Money, lack of money, responsibility, confidence, health, confidence, limiting beliefs, lack of clarity. Mike says overthinking. That's a huge one. Fear. Chris Andrews. Amber says the kids. Don't blame Amber, Chris. A lack of energy, a lack of focus, my husband's job, health and indecision, fear. It's really interesting, isn't it? Like, what actually stops us from living the life we really want to live? And one of the biggest ones, I think, is fear. Fear of something going wrong, fear of it not going right, fear of being rejected, fear of things going badly. And in the old days, there were real consequences. If you went out there and you got it wrong, there were real consequences. You'd get eaten by a T-Rex, or you'd get eaten by a lion, or something would go wrong. And I actually was reminded of this by going to my wife's uncle's ranch in Texas last year. And we arrived at his ranch in the middle of Texas. There's nothing really around. And when we got there, he said, okay, there's some rules you need to know about. You need to be careful. When you leave the building in the morning, check your surroundings before you leave the door, because there are poisonous snakes here that can kill you. And I started to feel a bit nervous leaving the place in the morning. And then he said, oh, yes. And the second rule, make sure you check your shoes before you put them on, because we have tarantulas. And we have, what's the ones with the thing at the back? The poisonous thing, that like scorpions. Thank you, Kennetha. We have scorpions, so check your surroundings for those. Then he said, before you put your clothing on, please like shake it out. We have flesh-eating spiders. And I'm thinking, how many ways are there that I can die in this place? Take me back to Basingstoke. Nothing can kill me in Basingstoke. But actually, it's really interesting that there are consequences in some ways, but in most of our lives, in the town we live in the place we live in, like the consequences are not life and death. The consequences are we might get rejected or things might get wrong. But we like to push this idea, or media likes to push this idea of the fearless leader that will stride out there and conquer all. And I actually don't like this image. I hate this image. I hate this idea, because I think we all get fear and afraid at times. And it's not about being fearless. It's about accepting that sometimes fear is a good thing. It should, like being afraid of snakes, if you don't know the difference between a poisonous one and a non-poisonous one, will keep you alive in certain places in the world. Fear can be a good thing. It's your emotions and your state trying to keep you safe. And that can be a great thing. If you're walking along the edge of a cliff and you're feeling nervous about falling off, that's your body trying to keep you safe from falling off. That's a good thing. The problem is if fear stops you taking action over something that can't actually hurt you. Like putting out a YouTube video. You do not believe how many people are afraid of doing a YouTube video. Are you likely to die if you film yourself on your phone and put it out onto YouTube? Organizer in chief says maybe a little bit. Like there is a likelihood you will get a negative comment. However, your likelihood of it dying is very low. Your likelihood of like these things happening to you when you're launching a business, writing a book, putting something out there, turning your camera on in a meeting, surprising how many people are afraid of that. And fear is a bad thing when it stops us taking action. So fear is one of the things that stops us from taking action. And part of fear comes from this thing called binary thinking. And I don't know if you know this, but binary is a computer language where everything is either 1 or a 0. And when we make things binary, we say it is either this or it is that. And so many people come to me in the courses and say, Alan, should I buy Facebook ads or should I spend my money on a newspaper advert? And they give me 2 options. And they're making the choice binary and they're scared of making the right choice. And Katie would be screaming at me saying, it's not binary. Actually, she would be swearing if it wasn't live. She likes to do that. She runs around the place swearing. It's not binary. And it's not in most instances. You don't have to do A or B. There's a myriad of options. And I think this binary thinking traps us in the idea that there are binary results or outcomes. I'm either going to grow a giant business or why should I bother? I'm either going to get to financial independence or why should I bother? And it's fascinating how we trap ourselves into thinking it's one or the other. And if it goes the wrong way, we're afraid of that result, so we wouldn't do it. binary thinking traps us. It happens to me all the time. I think, should I write a book or should I run a podcast? Is that a real choice? Like, there are limits on my time, there are limits on my energy, but like Kerry Barton says, try both. You're exactly right. It's not one or the other. I can try a bit of writing and see how I feel. I can try running a podcast episode and see how I feel. You can do the same. You can do tests to see which ones are which. But here's the bit, is it's the experiments. Judith says, are there really limits on your energy, Alan? The answer to that is yes, there are limits on my energy. I have a huge amount. I do a lot of running and exercise to have it, but there are limits. Even I get tired occasionally. But the bit I wanted to get to with this is, what's the true cost of a bad decision? Because I think we get paralyzed in making a decision because we don't want to do the wrong one. And we're thinking, well, if I do this one, like, I'm missing out on this, and the cost of it going wrong is this. And we get paralyzed by this thing. And I just wanted to give you a few questions and a way of thinking about the cost of a bad decision to try and help mitigate it, to allow you to try things. And someone a minute ago in the text said, dabbling can be very unfocused. And you are right. And we'll come on to how dabbling can be a good thing at a certain point and a bad thing at others. And this is where it also becomes this thing of binary. Is dabbling good or bad? It's either a 1 or a 0. It's either a binary or not. And people forget that it's good sometimes and bad others. So here's the questions to ask yourself to deal with fear about these things. And I think one of the most important things, if you're deciding to do something, thinking about what could go wrong with this project. If I do this, what could go wrong? What are the chances? What's the downside? What's the problems? Then, how can I mitigate these risks? That's a very fancy way of saying, how can I make them smaller? So an example of that when you're launching a business is, I'm launching a business. I think I need to borrow 100 grand to launch my business. Like, if it goes wrong, I'll be in debt for 100 grand. Well, let's do an experiment where we don't have to borrow the money and we try and sell it first. Then we can test the idea without those risks. And there is always a way of testing things without the risks. And one of the questions that really unlocked me was, how long will it take me to get back to where I am today if it all goes wrong? And if the answer is not a lot, then why not test it? So if you think, I'm going to launch a podcast on the side and I'll record a couple of episodes, if it all goes wrong and no one listens, or I get hate mail or whatever, how long does it take me to get back to where I am? Well, I haven't actually gone any further back by doing that. So, like, why not have a go? And the final question, how can I run a test without the risk? Because the thing I've realized is there's so many lives you can choose from. I think this is the most YMCA slide I have ever created in my life. Thank you to Laura Paul for helping me create this. But the idea is there are so many different lives you could choose from. You could do anything. There's Mark Pringle is top on my screen. Mark, like, there are so many different lives you could live and try and do. And that is exciting and infuriating, because how do we decide? And have you heard of the paradox of choice? Have you heard of this? It is, the more choices there are, the harder it is to choose. And I remember in America is the home of consumerism. And I remember going into a Whole Foods and I was wandering around looking for what I was going to eat. And there was so much choice, it was paralyzing. And I was in a daze for about 20 minutes before I said, I need to narrow this down so I can make a choice. And I decided I would look at the soups. I was like, I will eat soup. So I went to the soup section. And in the soup section, there was like 15 different choices. How am I going to decide? I don't think I can do this. And I almost sat down in the middle of Whole Foods, paralyzed. So, talk about first world problems. But it was so difficult to choose. So difficult to choose. If someone had come up to me and said, Alan, would you like chicken or fish? Or would you like vegetables or fish? I would have gone, I'll have vegetables. And it would have been done. But it's so difficult to choose when there's so many things out there, and the pressure to make the right choice. You've heard of this idea of finding your passion. Have you found your one true passion? Have you found it? Mark's nodding. Oh, now he's shrugging. He doesn't. He was sure a second ago. Now he doesn't know. Organizer in chief is like, I have no idea. John has found his true passion. That's awesome. Kenneth says it's not binary, which I love. Kevin says no, hasn't found it yet. Sounds like I don't know. That's an interesting point. How can you actually know? And I think this is really interesting because there's so many people are out there searching for their passions. And I'd like to say to you, it's not out there. Someone says my slides are stuck. Are my slides are stuck? Can you see one with the light shining down saying it's not out there? No. Okay, that's not good. You can't see any slides. Okay. I'm going to stop my slides and make them start again so that hopefully it will work. Okay. Can you see one true passion now? Okay, got a thumbs up. Fantastic. Thank you. You didn't see the YMCA one? Oh no, I'll go back. There you go. There's the YMCA one. Tell me earlier. There's the YMCA. See, that was the reaction I was expecting, was laughter. You're all there going, oh, I didn't even see this. They were, yeah. We got some great slides. So there's the YMCA one. The paradox of choice, me at Whole Foods. Searching for one true passion and searching out in the world for your passion. And what I wanted to say to you was, it's not out there. Like so many people, I think, are waiting. They're waiting for the skies to open up, for the light to shine down, for the doves to fly past, and the choir to sing. Ah! And you find your passion, and that's the rest of your life. Tick, done. Is that realistic? It doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. Your passion is within you. You get passionate about something. So you can decide what to be passionate about. And it's okay if you get passionate about something and then change. Because I think so many people are trying to find what's my true purpose, what makes me happy, what's the one thing. It's not out there. So a question for you. Do you like ice cream? Do any of you like ice cream? There's a few nods. What's your favorite flavor? Tracy says yes. Anne says yes. Caramel, says Kevin, favorite flavor. Vegan ice cream, obviously. Bubblegum flavor. Salted caramel, pistachio, vanilla, mint. Cookie dough, I'm with whoever said cookie dough. How do you know which is your favorite flavor? How do you know? Tried them. Halima says, I've tried them all. I like your commitment, Halima. If you're anything like me, you've gone to the supermarket and you've bought a whole range of ice creams and you've tried them. And you've gone, actually, I love cookie dough with bits in, or I love this, or this is the one. And you've tried them. But why don't we do that with things? Why don't we experiment and try and test so that we know which one we can get passionate about and feel joy about and do? How many careers have you had in your life? This is one of the most hideously designed slides I have ever shown in my life, but bear with me. I had a lot of careers. In school, I started selling Mars bar cakes. Then I sold college party tickets, and I sold sportswear. Then I worked in retail, ran a warehouse, ran a sports store, ran an online business that failed. I did telesales, I did field sales in photocopiers, I did recruitment, worked in a pub, ran after school clubs in rugby, did landscaping, did grounds maintenance, I did corporate training, I did school entrepreneurial training. Then actually, I started to do speaking. And then I started to do stand-up comedy. And then not that many people laughed, so I moved on quickly. Then I got to Rebel Business School. But do you see how many I've been through before I even got there? And my granny's there saying, stick with one, stick with one. And I actually think I should have failed faster. Because if I'd have failed faster and I'd tried, if I hadn't have stuck with like field sales of photocopiers, if there's one thing I've learned, I'm not passionate about photocopiers. I do that in about a week. I hated the culture, I hated the organization, but I felt like I should make it work. I should stick at it, I should do it. And I pushed myself to do it. But I should have failed faster and gone quicker to get to where I actually wanted to get to. And Hasina says, fail forward. She stays in things for too long. I've stayed in things for too long. There is an element, once you've found something you like, stick with it. I found Rebel Business School, and I've been doing that for 10 years. It will be the 10-year anniversary of that this November, and I loved it. And I stuck with it through thick and thin. But once I'd been through some stuff and found out about it, I now run Chautauquas. I've tried being a movie writer. I've launched a podcast. I've done blogging. I've built Rebel Finance School with my wife. James says, how do you know when it's time to move on? I guess the question is, like, it's a simple answer for a business, James. If you try a business idea, I have 3 criteria as to whether you move on. The criteria are, number 1, did you enjoy doing it? If no, stop. If yes, go to question 2. Question 2, did your customers enjoy the product or service? Like, did your customers enjoy what you're doing? And then question 3, did you make money? If you can say, I enjoyed it, the customers enjoyed it, and I think we can make money even if you didn't in the first experiment, then I would keep going. If you don't, then I would switch quickly. We get too stuck on what we're doing, which is the sunk cost fallacy. And who knows what next for me? TV show host, author, I'm going to try some stuff. But so many people are scared of trying new things. My wife's gone out, so some gentle family bashing. We were around the kitchen table having food, and I remember my mother-in-law had tried a new dish, and I liked it. I thought it was great, but my father-in-law said, this is not good. Why are we experimenting? Your other dishes are great as they are. And I remember thinking, that's the fear of trying new things. The only way to find out if you like something is to have a go. So what I'd like to say to you is, make a list of your options that you could do going forwards. Julie says, is there a danger of being a jack of all trades and a master of none? The answer is yes, if you don't stop the trying period and eventually pick one to go for. But what I think most people do is they pick one thing, stick at it way too long, and then get afraid of trying new things. Rather than testing 5, 10, 15 things, picking one and then focusing on it. Because you're right, the skills do develop when you stay with something. I've done the Rebel Business School for 10 years now, and I've only got good at it because I've kept going and going and going and going. But I had to try all of those things to get to it. And I think people get confused and they try and jump to picking the one thing without testing them out. If you've got 3 business ideas and you can try them out without risk, why not try them? If you've got a career you can do on the side and you can test it, like volunteer at the weekends, do something with someone else. You can test ideas at the same time. This is back to the binary thing of I have to choose one. You don't have to. You can have your career and test some things at the weekend and see if there's something better, somewhere else you want to go. There's so many ways to do it, so many ways. One warning, the words be reasonable. Has anyone ever said to you when you set your thoughts, are you sure you can do that? You really think you can do that? The world is designed to tell you to be reasonable because they want to protect you from failure, because failure is a bad thing. John is shaking his head. He's absolutely right. Failure is not a bad thing. It's actually better to get it to go wrong quickly so you can move on to the next thing and test and try. The world is trying to keep you safe by telling you to be reasonable, but it actually has the opposite effect and stops you finding what you really want to do. So let's stop being reasonable and let's test some things. So if you look down your list of options, is there really a bad choice? Then I'd say to you, well, if there is really a bad choice, why is it on your list? Why have you got it on your list? Just cross it out, throw it away. There's plenty of options that are good options. And is it binary? Do you have to pick one path? Maybe you do to start with, and we're getting on to that. I think the only real way to lose at life is to do nothing and to be stuck doing the thing you don't actually enjoy. If you try stuff, but it's this stuff that stops people. And we had 4,000 people through our course last year at Rebel Business School. The number one thing people said was fear stops them from starting a business. What to do and finance, like that stops them from starting up. And people think that entrepreneurship is risky, so they don't do it. Entrepreneurship is risky if you borrow a lot of money, but it doesn't have to be. You can choose your risk, whether it's money, time, energy, reputation, rejection. There are real consequences to this stuff, but you can minimize those by doing different things and trying stuff. You can sell before you create. That completely changes the way you launch a business. You can go and volunteer at the weekend, get a part-time job, experiment in your spare time, take a free course. Talk to someone who's done it before. There's so many ways to run mini experiments, to try stuff and to test things and to get out there. You have so many lives within you that you could try, but you're stopping yourself from doing it. You could join the YMCA if you want to. I'm 43 years old. How many careers do you think I've got left in me? 1? 2? Organizer-in-chief says 10. That's a lot of careers. I think I could probably try a lot of things. Someone says, Dominic in the chat says, Colonel Saunders was 65 when he launched KFC. That is so true. There are so many things I could do if I wanted to. I'd like to give you the theory of 2 hills. Imagine for a second there are 2 hills in front of you, and you have a choice of which one to run up. And that's a metaphor for a project you want to start, a business you want to launch, those sort of things. What most people do, yeah, binary hills, says JP, exactly, there's 2 hills. Most people sit between the 2 hills and they do a little like analysis, a SWOT analysis of which one's best. What are my strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities of this hill and that hill? And they never do it. What do you think my approach is to these hills? Run up one? Yeah, I'm just going to pick one because there's not really a right answer. I'm going to pick one. I'm going to charge up it. I'm going to see what it's like. If I get halfway up and I don't like that hill, can I run back down and run up the other one? Like, absolutely. And I will have tried both hills before most people will have got out of bed in the morning. And I think that's the bit I really want you to get. It's not binary. You can try the hill, run up it and have a go. But so many people are paralyzed. So here's the exercise I would love to give you. This is your homework for today. I'd love you to take the 3, 4, 5 different ideas of things you can do next and do what I would call a timeline exercise. So you can lay out the multiverse in front of you. And you can see, like, if I try this idea, where might I end up in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and what's the direction? And if I try this idea, like, which way would I go? And if I try my third idea, what would happen 1 year out, 2 years out, and what's my direction? And then from those, I'm going to ask you to pick one and run up it. That's it. Because the longer you spend analyzing, the harder it is to actually get going and try things. There are moments we spoke about right at the start that change your life. And I've had so many of those moments. Judith says, is that a real background or a fake screen? No, it's actually a real background. It's just out there. I got my wife to take that photo for me. There are moments that change your life. For me, it was when I was handed a book at 21 years old and I actually made the decision to do it. It was when you meet someone out of the blue that tells you something or takes you on a different path. You get diagnosed with a disease or something bad happens. Or another one for me, I got fired. That changed everything for me. Or you get divorced, or you get your first sale on the business. And these are the moments that change your life. But these are all things that happen to you. And what I want to suggest is you don't wait for those things to happen to you. So many people wait for the thing to happen to them before they wake up and they decide to change their job or do the different thing or go the different way. They wait for those things. And what I'd love to say to you is you will be the same person in a year's time, apart from the books you read, the courses you go on, and the people you meet. So why not just make these moments happen for you? You don't have to wait for life to happen to you. You can do it. If you want to learn about financial independence, watch the YouTube video Katie and I did, like introducing it. Go on a physical training course, go somewhere, go and do a fire walk, sign up to a dating app, put yourself out there. What's the worst that happens? One of your friends sees your profile, you get rejected, who knows? Interview an expert, find someone fascinating, volunteer at a project or a business. Have a go at changing your life. And I guess people say to me, Alan, this is all fascinating. But how do I actually get this going? Well, one of the things here is, it sounds awfully rousing, change your life and all that stuff, but sometimes it's a very big thing. So to make it possible, it is to break it down. So when I think about this stuff, and I do it with my wife and we teach it and we work with people, we think about the different areas of life. So there's 8 areas of life in front of you. There's personal development, so maybe it's your confidence. There's finance, money, your personal finances, career and business, the business you've started or your career, your connection to the universal spirituality, call it whatever you want. There's your relationships, contribution and giving, health and fitness, and then finally physical environment. I'd love you to pick one, and I don't really care which one it is. Maybe it's the one that's giving you the most pain. Maybe it's the one that's annoying you the most. And then I would like you to run a mini experiment and try changing it. Pick one thing and change it. Just pick one item, because it's very hard to change it all immediately. You've just got to pick one thing and have a go. So my question to you is, what do you want to experiment with? What do you want to test? And what we need to do is take that thing you want to experiment with and turn it into a next action that you can actually just get on and do it. Let's stop thinking about it and let's start doing it. And that is what I want you to take away. Jane says, how do we ask that? How do we ask questions? Jane, explain to me what you mean by how do we ask questions, and I'll get back to you on that one. The summary of this, like, what do I actually want you to get out of the course? I want you to get out of this that there is no right answer. The world puts so much pressure on us to do the right thing. There is no right answer. You could lead so many different lives. It doesn't really matter. Pick one that you're excited about and have a go at it. And the expression I really want you to take is self-care is not chocolates and a bubble bath. Self-care is designing a life you don't want to escape from. Because there's so many people that go to work or go to something they have to do, and then they come back and they look after themselves by a bubble bath or watching a TV show. I'd rather you designed your life so you don't need to escape from it. Like, that's the biggest gift you can give to yourself, is designing a life that you truly love. So start experimenting, start trying, start creating, and design a life, because the extraordinary belongs to those that create it. No one is going to hand you an extraordinary life. When you were at school, did they come round going, hello, Mark, would you like an extraordinary life? They did at your school. Tell you what, you were lucky. No one's going to hand you an extraordinary life. You have to build it. And that is the bit that's really struck me. And if you're feeling paralyzed about which life you should lead, I want you to know there's no wrong answer. There's no right answer. We just need to start and make progress. So I would love you, please, to write in the chat, what is your biggest takeaway from this? And then after that, I'm going to hang out and answer some questions in chat, but I would love you to write, what's your biggest takeaway? Put oranges in the bath, says Alistair. Not sure about that, Alistair. That's not what I was going for. Pick one thing, says Sam. Kerry says that I sold Mars bar cakes. I did. If you've never tried Mars bar cakes, they are amazing. You can look up the recipe online. They're not good for your health, though. Pick one thing. They're moving so fast, I'm going to have to go through this afterwards and read them all. Alan Evans says, crack on. Barry says, my enthusiasm. Someone says, run up mountains. Stop holding back. Focus on your passion. Ingrid says, contacting someone won't kill me. I love that. Yes, using the phone does not kill you, but so many people are afraid of it, including me in the old days. Using the phone is actually quite a safe way of contacting someone. Helen says, keeping motivated, keep picking one things. I'm going to have so much fun going through all these. Thank you so much for timeline exercise. I love that. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. It is question time. That was the sunset here the other night. It is beautiful. So I am here to talk to you and to answer your questions. So I stopped sharing my screen. There is a put your hand up feature on this thing. Jane has found it. She's the quickest one off the mark. So Jane, would you like to unmute, ask a question? If you want to escape, you can escape now. If you want to stay for the questions, you are very welcome to stay for the questions. I'm here to hang out and chat to you all for a bit, but that's the sort of end of the formal content. Jane, are you there? Can you unmute? Hello.
Okay, sorry, it said that it wasn't allowing me to. Just a quick question. If you lower your needs in life, like you only need one chair, a small TV, blah blah blah, only minimal food or whatever, can you not then like reach financial independence much quicker than having to actually be like have loads of money and be rich and stuff? And still follow your passions just for the enjoyment of them and not the material stuff.
I love that. Yes. So the answer to your question is absolutely yes. Financial independence is a fairly simple equation. And the simple equation is like, take the expenses that you want to live off in retirement, times it by 25, and that's what you need in an index fund to live off. So if you need one chair and a small apartment, and you can live off 15,000 a year, 10,000 a year, whatever it is, times it by 25, and that gives you your target. The bigger the house you need, the bigger the car you need, the more expensive the holidays you need, the more money you need to live, the higher your target is. So it's a fairly simple one, and there's no right answer here. There's no right answer at all. Like, decide where you want to be, and everyone has their own answer. Some people don't need a lot to live off. Some people are not happy if they haven't got a huge amount. So there's no right answer. You just pick how much you need. Did that kind of help, Jane? I think you've muted again.
Sorry, yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Jane. Next up on my screen is Sally May. Hello, Sally May.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Hello. I am fascinated as to who helped you to write your book, because that's something I really would love to do.
His name is Jay Thorne, and he contacted me through my thing. I can send you his email address, I'm sure.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. Yeah,
he's a book coach. He's really nice.
That's what I'd like to know, because obviously how you build your content and the different chapters, you want it in a format that it makes sense and flows, don't you? So yes, that would be something I'd be interested in. Yeah,
we're actually recording our coaching calls together.
Oh,
and I'm going to release it as a podcast series so that anyone out there can follow along and write a book with us. That's so awesome. I'm on that, making it available for everyone.
Excellent. I used to work for a book manufacturer. And very recently, and they're the ones that put all the celebrity books on the shelves at Christmas. They actually create 200 million books a year.
Wow.
So and you can actually go through them to publish a book. If you're interested, I can tell you that too.
I might message you afterwards. Thank you, Sally.
No problem.
Cool. See you soon.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
Sally. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Mark Pringle, the man I spent most of my time picking on.
Hi, Alan. I think I just wanted to say something that really just supports everything that you've been talking about, really. My quick backstory is I've worked for the ambulance service for 20 years. My father worked in the ambulance service before me. And a bit like you said at the beginning of your presentation, I just felt like that was always going to be my career. I never considered anything being any different to that. And then I was struggling with burnout, or what turned out to be burnout, at the beginning of the pandemic. And it really made me change my focus on life and where I felt like my life was going and what I could perhaps do differently. And then on the back of that, I've reduced my hours, and I got this idea from support that I'd had that I was going to go into coaching, and was receiving coaching myself. And then I was just about to get into a position where I was thinking about investing a lot of money to get qualifications. And you said again at the beginning of the presentation today about having these opportunities someone just gave me this this link for the business school and said, maybe you should have a look at this before you start to invest a lot of money into this idea. Like I've only been on the most recent business school, which was beginning of the month, and just off the back of that was listening to your podcast. Again, randomly, a colleague told me about compounding investments. That was again at the beginning of the pandemic, so I sort of got into investing and savings. And I think you're right. I think looking back, I had so many opportunities that I could have gone down the path of doing what I had always known and what I thought was going to be my future. And sort of, I don't know whether it's been luck, but I just seem to have kept taking the right fork and moving and progressing forward. And it's from listening to you talk today, the Rebel Business School, and just having this, I suppose, this greater understanding of, just taking a look at your life and sort of trying to work out where you want, I'm waffling a bit now, sorry. I'm trying to work out where you want to go. Sorry, I feel like I've gone on a bit too long there.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's amazing. Like sometimes you are open to new things and sometimes you're not. And then there becomes a point in life. And I guess the purpose of this whole thing today was like, you don't have to wait for moments to happen to you. Like I get burnt out and then I'll search for something new. You can do it before that happens. Like if you can find out where to go. So yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Great work. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mark. Mr. Paul Anthony Dehan, how are you?
Well, sir, Alan.
Nice to see you. Nice curtain.
Thank you. Chad, the seaside. Wow, it looks amazing. Yeah, great course. Call. Timeline. Amazing. One of the questions. Oh, can you hear me right? Right.
Only every other word. Is everyone? Linda's shaking her head too. I can only hear every other word.
Cool. So let's come back. Can you hear me now?
Difficult.
My earphone. We come back. I'll come.
Okay, cool. We'll come to Rafiq and then I'll come back to you if you, hopefully you fixed that. Hey, Rafiq.
Yes, thank you so much. It's a wonderful course, and this is great presentation. Great, things open up. Now, what I realize here, at least in UK, is that this is not an expenditure problem. People mostly have an income problem, and the reason that they are switching jobs, they are switching careers, because they are not able to pay out for their food, for their rent and everything. So one of the reasons that people should be switching jobs and careers is to fill that gap. You see, eventually at retirement, the government pays you not enough so that you can pay for your food and shelter. So you have to do something additional to earn that income to pay for that retirement or for that gap period. This is it. And I think, thank you so much for making this presentation so wonderful and, absolutely wonderful. Congratulations.
Awesome. Thank you, Rafiq. Cool. Adam. Hello, Adam.
How are you doing? You all right?
I'm good. How are you? It's nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. You too. I said in the chat that your kind of speech gave me a bit of a lump in my throat because I feel your pain when you were listing your job and how much. I think you and I are different. I'm like planted this fear, and you've removed the fear from me. You've gone to try out. I suppose the fear for me, I got made redundant in June for being with the company for 11.5 years, doing the same role. And now I've done two new jobs, and I didn't stick to the first one, and I'm doing another one, and I hate it as well. And all I'm fear about is how you're seen on LinkedIn, and like, oh, he did, I haven't even put the other job in my CV because, oh, he was only there 3 months. Well, what's wrong with him? Can't he stick anything? And it's this fear, like, you go and try something, you think, God, it's not for me. I'm in a new job now, and I really know it's not for me. And you're like, you've got this broken CV, you've got this person that can't do anything. And it's I suppose what I'm asking you is, where did you get that inclination to, like, just go, you know what, sod it, I need to just do something for me? And even if I don't set up my own business, which I don't intend to, I intend to try and focus on something I'm actually good at rather than pretending I'm good at, because that's how I feel my life is. You're like, you always feel like you're in disguise, got in somehow, and you're doing a role that you're kind of good at, but it's not your passion. It's not something that you could be like, wow, Adam, you did really well there. I think that's in a lot of cases how we all feel in a role. So I admire your
So
your
the question
braveness, I
is,
suppose.
how did I get rid of the fear
Yeah.
to be able to try stuff?
Yeah, I suppose, especially in the climate of, like, everyone looks at your CV and goes, God, you didn't stick it that long. This was, I'm stuck with fear with that. I keep trying different jobs, and everyone who's you're going to go for a job for you is going to think you can't hold on to any job. But the fact is, it's just not right for you. I think you probably hear my voice. I was quite frustrated with myself.
I can. I think, like, so the first thing, I never entirely got rid of my fear. That whole thing of, like, the fearless person who goes out there and does it. I am not that. I still get afraid. I just decided to have a go anyway, because the worst that happens is other people judge me, and I want to swear at this point and tell them where to go. Like, I'm trying my best. And you get
out there and try it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you just have to try your best. And like, if you positively go into situations saying, I really want to make this work, and you try your best, like, people will sense that. And you're right, there'll be some jobs that come up and they'll go, look at your CV, and they'll go no to this or no to that. You can change your CV, you can hide bits of it, you can condense bits of it, like, make yourself look the best you can. Everyone does that, including the companies. The companies are only telling you the best bits. They're not telling you the shit bits about their job. So make yourself look good. That's what they're doing. And, like, I would say, you just have to have a go anyway. Like, the fear is going to be there. I still get afraid when I'm launching new things, doing new things. I was nervous this week. Like, I spent 2 weeks working every day on this content and designing this deck and creating the course, and I was still nervous. Like, I know this is going to add value, but I was still nervous.
I think the bit you said about go home feeling like you're not escaping to watch TV or eat that chocolate bar, and that is such a hard hitting statement. That really is. I mean, it's just like, I have to say, I can guarantee a lot of people do that. I mean, it's, it is, that's incredibly hard hitting. It's excellent, actually, excellent statement.
It's meant in the nicest possible way to help you find something that you.
No, I mean, if you want to tell someone, that is a way to get it across. It's yeah, I think that's probably what did it for me, I have to say, and got through to me anyway. Anyway, thank you. I don't want to take any more of your time.
Like, message me if I can do anything to help, or you've got any
thoughts.
Or...
I'm your age. I'm 42. And I've been doing the same role. You get made redundant because of COVID. Yeah, and I've been to job now, trying to work out what to do, trying to copy what I used to do. Haven't been able to find that. You're trying to match what you used to do, and I'm coming up with blanks. And you're worrying about pension. You're worrying about this. You panic, and the fear comes in, and it's a bit of a vicious circle. But
you've got time. No. You're young.
Yeah.
I'm a year older than you. I can say that. But you've got plenty of time. Like 42. Like, think how many careers and lives you can lead. But we put so much pressure on ourselves to have had it all figured out by X age. You
Yeah.
don't have
I
to. You
I
just-
admire how many things you've tried. I tell you, that is, yeah, I admire that. You've really listened. I'm sure there's more you're not even listed as well.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
plenty. And some people will judge me for it and some people admire me for it. And I don't like, it's just what I tried. I had to try a lot of things and fail at a lot of things to get something that I loved.
Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Send me a message, Adam.
All right. Cheers. I appreciate it.
Cool. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Linda, love the hoodie. You're looking a little bit like the Emperor with that hoodie and the lightning. Ooh, can you unmute? Perfect.
Hi, how are you?
How
Yeah,
are
I'm all
you?
cozy. The room is cold, so I'm doing my Yoda look here. I have about 3 things I want to ask and say. I know it was posted in the chat there. Have you come to a conclusion with the podcast? Is it still going ahead? Have you resolved it yet?
I'm pretty sure I'm going to go ahead with doing 1 episode a week.
Brilliant.
I found a couple of sources of funding that will cover some of it, and yeah, I'm working on it and I'm closing
Yay.
in. So yes, I will
I
keep
think
going.
there's a few of us were hoping to hear that. And then there's just I spotted Simon there, and I just want to say my most favorite recently listened to episode was your startup process with Simon. So hey to Simon there. And then I love your podcast, but I want to know is what podcast do you love?
I used to all the time listen to Choose FI and the Tim Ferriss podcast. I used to love those two. I think, I don't know if you've heard this before, but I like creation, not consumption.
Yeah.
I've got into a phase of my life where I feel like I've consumed for 20 years and like I'm full of stuff and ideas and I just want to like create and put them out into the world. So I've actually slowed down my consumption significantly so that I can spend more time creating.
Okay. That was my question. So I'll let you move on to the next person because there's loads of hands up. Thank you so much.
It was lovely to see you, Linda.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks. Paul Anthony Dehand and then Chris Bellows here as well. Asked to unmute. Can you unmute, Paul?
Yes. Hi there. Is that
That's
better?
perfect. Your sound is perfect.
Oh, good. I took my earphones out. Yeah. So I think I relate to what Adam was talking about there quite a lot of the fear of being judged. I think when you get middle aged and you've got a like solid career behind you, you kind of like, that's my identity, and you feel a bit stuck in that niche. Then trying different aspects, you kind of get scared of trying new things. So there's that of the judgment of your partner and your close family friends of trying different things. And then I'm a guy who does all or nothing. I'm 100% in. So it's like one thing I need to do sometimes is like hold myself back, because I know the mini experiments, like trying different things. It's like, I'll go and get the $5,000 course. I'll get the $5,000 mentor. I'll go and buy the new minibus, whatever I'm all in. And if it's just an experiment, how do you squash that urge to just go all in and just try the mini? Like, do you know what I'm trying to say? I'm like, because money's obviously important. So throwing everything at one project, you kind of need to do it. I don't know. How would you quash that thirst for 100% in?
I think 100% in is great. I think it's like minimizing those risks, and like you don't have to go out and buy the 10 grand course immediately or the whatever it is. There is a way to do the mini experiment whereby, okay, I'm going to put it online. I'm going to try and sell it. I'm going to see what happens. And then 3 weeks later, I will set a deadline. And at that date, I will review the mini experiment and go, did I enjoy it? Did they enjoy it? Did it make money? Or if it was a job, or if it was this, I will set myself a time frame. And with the podcast, I actually set myself, I'm going to record season 1 and I didn't know how many episodes there was, but I was going to do season 1 and see if I like it. And if I don't, I'll finish it. And if I do, I'll push in and do it more. But I think like you need to do that mini experiment before you spend all that money and the investment and see if you like it. And you will actually have learned a lot of the early questions to then make more value out of the course, whatever it is later on. I don't think you even know what the questions are until you've tried it out. Like so many people are trying to learn everything about real estate or everything about investing before they've even had a little go or an experiment. Like you have to be in the game to a certain extent to even know the questions to ask. So I would set a date. I would do it without spending money, volunteer, do this, do that, do the mini experiment to see what happens. And then do it as quickly as you can. And if it fails, awesome, try the next thing. If it doesn't, then you can go further in. Did that help at all?
Yeah, 100%. I love it. Like that 3 question, what you said earlier and just then as well, like, did you enjoy it? Did your customers enjoy it? Did you make money? I think that's perfect way to review the mini experiment. Yeah, so that's perfect. Thank you very much. Cheers, Alan.
Nice to see you, Paul.
Catch up soon.
Excellent. So next we've got Chris, then Alistair Lockie, and then Alan Evans. It's like a lineup of my favorite people.
Hey, Alan, thank you for putting this on. Can you hear me okay?
I can, perfect. And I love
Awesome.
your American accent.
Yeah, I didn't see the Zoom link at first, so I missed like the first 20 minutes. I kept seeing the Eventbrite page, so I'm like, I got to go back and listen to it if the recording's out. But speaking of mini experiments, I'm just laughing because I see you had a great webinar, 147 participants. I actually have started testing my own as well. And yesterday I still did the webinar. I only had like 2 people on. One of them was my assistant, so she has to be on there because I pay her. So I'm like, should I even do this? And the other guy drops off, right? So my question for you is, how do you actually stay motivated to keep trying when you're not seeing the momentum? Obviously, I can't just expect to have 500 people show up, but I guess this kind of goes back to some things that other people were asking, like how many times do I try this experiment before I just say, maybe it's not the right topic, maybe it's not the right audience, I should move on to something else?
So I love that question because it's one I've struggled with myself. And I think I actually go into a little diagnostic phase. So I remember there was one particular guy who came on the training, the business school course, who had a shaker for protein shakes. And he was like, oh, I tried Kickstarter, didn't work, failed project. I'm like, okay, well, let's dig into it. How many people saw the Kickstarter page? How many people did you promote it to? What was the funnel of traffic going through? Like you're saying you had one person on the course, but like how many people saw it? How wide was the promotion? Like what were those numbers helps me to know, am I just pushing something uphill that's not going anywhere? Or do I actually need to go harder on the promotion? Do I need to put it in front of more people? Did I send 15 or 20 individual Facebook messages and everyone rejected me? And so I go into the diagnostics of the figures before then I figure out whether I want to go. If you've put your idea out in front of 100,000 people on social media and no one has clicked, like then I'd be thinking, okay, let's start to move on. If you've got it out there and actually you looked at it and you said, well, I shared it on my Facebook, I know that doesn't go to that many people and I did this and I should have another go. But until we do the diagnostic, I think it's difficult to answer that question. And then sometimes you do the diagnostic and you look at the numbers and you go, actually, like, even though the numbers are there, I think this idea still has something. Let me try a different spin and give it another go. But that then comes down to your gut feeling and your belief, because you can ignore the numbers if you truly believe it's a great idea. But there does come a stage where you've been trying for 15 years where you go, this is not going anywhere. Does that help with that bit at all? Oh, you've gone on mute again.
Sorry, I didn't realize that you had the power to unmute, so I accidentally muted myself and then I was stuck.
You were stuck.
But that does help. Yeah, that does help a lot. Just getting more information, diagnosing, because right now it's just like, I don't even know how many people saw it. I didn't really realize how many people came to the page. So did I promote it enough? Did I post it enough times? Did I send enough email reminders? There's a lot of different things that I'm just assuming. So I really love the diagnostic approach, and that does help. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. We had a housing association that wanted to know if people wanted to do our course. So I said, do an experiment and ask your audience. And they did one post on Facebook and then came back and said no one wanted to do it. I'm like, you haven't tried. You can't say that from that data set. So,
right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. It was lovely to see you, Chris.
Good to see you as well. Thank you for putting this together. And I think I was that example of the person who tried the Kickstarter. When I was on your podcast, I'm like, yeah, that guy was an idiot. I spent like $30,000 or $40,000 on an idea, and yeah, it's sitting in a warehouse somewhere.
You were actually the second person.
So someone else did this too.
Yep.
I was like,
cool.
I think I know that guy.
See you soon, Chris.
Good to see you too.
Mr. Ali Lockie, are you there?
Hello, how are you doing, Alan?
So good to see you.
So good to see you as well. Thank you so much for that. You are a master of your craft. You really are, and you've chosen to use your powers for good, to the great benefit of all of us. So truly, thank you. I hope you don't mind a devil's advocate question, because it's the only one that I could really come up with.
I love it.
I feel like we're in a, like the people that are attending tonight, it's going to be a self-selecting audience, right? But do you think there are some people where this advice doesn't necessarily apply? I'm thinking of sort of two categories in particular. One, who are at the opposite end of the spectrum from FIRE, who might be heavily indebted, and it's actually really financially risky for them to sort of to be trying and chopping and changing, etc. And another would be, I mean, I don't know, but perhaps your grandfather was actually really happy staying in the job long term. I'm quite a lifer with, as a software developer, being at the same company for 10 years is crazy. You know, no programmers stay in their jobs. But I'm really happy with the community around me and with the people around me. So I absolutely love your advice. I'm just throwing some devil's advocates out there for you.
I love that. I think, number one, if you like your job, don't change it. If you like what you do it. And I'm definitely not saying you should change it. I think if you don't like part of your life, like maybe it's the environment, maybe it's like you like your job, but it's something at the weekend that's not right, like do experiments there. But if there's something that works and you love it, just do it. Like, I think, like, people say, oh, I've got to financial independence, therefore I should quit my job, but I quite like it. I'm like, if you like doing what you do it. I think people get very confused about that bit. So I think, like, if you enjoy doing it, do it. I think the in debt thing, like, my advice to the person who is heavily in debt would be find something that makes you money and then run experiments on the side. And then if you find an experiment that works, you can then switch. There definitely becomes more freedom the more financially secure you are. And that makes it easier to experiment. But if you are in debt and you can find a job that brings in money, you can still experiment on the side. The advice still works in a low risk experiment type way. But yeah, there's a lot of strings. The more deeply you are in debt, the more restricted you are and the less freedom you have. Yeah, so I think that's a very good point. And yeah, Jane says, or go bankrupt. That's one way out of debt, definitely. But yeah, thank you for that, Ali. I will have a good think about that. It was lovely to see you. Mr. Alan Evans from my are you still in Basingstoke, my hometown?
I'm not a million miles away. And I'm there in that Starbucks when you're ready.
Oh.
So when you get bored with Mexico and Colombia.
I'll come back.
Really good, Alan. As as Alice just said, a fantastic presentation. Really got loads and loads out of it. I think you're famous for having an endless amount of energy, and it turns out you've also done all of the jobs and all of the things that there are. And I just wonder, do you think that because you got so much energy, you do so much stuff that you love? Or do you think because you do so much stuff that you love, you have loads of energy? Which comes first?
That's a lovely question. I think it's not one or the other, it's both. I think in the past, when I've had jobs that haven't struck with companies that I really struggled to connect with, I go home at 5 o'clock and sit on the couch and I can't do anything. And I struggle to, and then I get myself up for it the next day and I go back, and it's like a never ending, like, get yourself up for it, get defeated, get yourself up for it. And when you've got something that fills you with joy, you have more energy. I also think there is that way to get yourself to have energy, the way you phrase it, the exercise you do, the diet you do, the mindset you have around things. I do think like you can find that furnace of energy within inside yourself to do things. So I would see it more as a circle rather than which comes first, like one fuels the other and then the other fuels the other. And it's like, it can either be a virtuous circle of energy up, or if you find a job that you don't like. I remember one particular job I didn't like and I ate my way through it. So I would it was a job I hated. So I would buy a pack of chocolate biscuits, feel lethargic and feel crap, and then not enjoy the job, and then buy more food. And then like it was a downward spiral of doom. So I see those things as like a virtuous circle or a vicious circle. Yeah, I've definitely had jobs where I feel like I have to make the energy, otherwise it'll never happen, and that's unsustainable after a while.
Thank you. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, it was lovely to see you.
Yeah, likewise. We'll catch up soon.
Perfect. See you soon, Alan.
Right.
Oh, and the person who was going to ask the last question has just disappeared. There was someone there, but they put their hand down. Maybe they answered it. There was one more question on the chat, which I'll ask, which Kerry said, I have a question, but can't come on audio as I have kids. They will come running in. What was your first win that made you confident that you were doing the right thing with Rebel? And the answer to that was the first sale. I went to a housing association in Weston-super-Mare and I pitched them this course idea and they bought it and we ran it. And the feedback from that first course, Simon and I didn't really make any money doing it. We got paid very little for the first experiment, but the reaction from the people, the passion and the energy that we got back from it was just unbelievable. And I was like, okay, this is the thing. And then I pushed out there to do it. And I think it was doing that one experiment and seeing the reaction that made me go, I need to do more of this. I really do. So there we go. We've defeated all the questions. Whoever's still on the call, you have officially won the party and you can celebrate. Thank you very much for joining me tonight and being part of this. I really appreciate it. And yeah, what more do I have to say than thank you. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your notes and comments. I appreciate your energy and your effort. And I will be putting this together into a book very soon. Have a wonderful evening or day wherever you are. And thank you for coming along to the course. Goodbye, Paul. Goodbye, Chris. Goodbye, Mark, Ali Lockie, Alan Evans. It's like a group of my favorite people. Philip's gone to sleep. He's not turning off his camera. Philip, it's ended. Bye, everyone.